when I was overweight. That's the consequences. That's why I have all the loose skin now, I got, I feel like I have the best body I've ever had in my life. I have all this loose skin, but guess what? It's because it's the battle scars. It's the bad decisions I made in my life, and I've come to that point in my life where I can't do that anymore. You know how you guys we all go up and down and we go through things and we try for a little bit and it's usually got a reason for it. You got to go on a vacation or you're going to go to a reunion or something like that. So you make those like sacrifices, but only with the goal in mind. Instead of being like this, man, it's much better being healthy, and do it the healthy way. Don't do it with the shots. But if you have to, then do it. If you can't control yourself. But there's a lot of things that go along with that. And you don't get that satisfaction of doing it yourself. I'm telling you, there's more in the journey than the actual goal. And that's why I tell people is just don't set a goal weight. I mean, if you want to set a goal weight, but you want to set like I'm gonna get there and I'm gonna keep going. So now I'm gonna try to stay at my goal weight, but now I'm gonna change that fat into muscle. Now I'm gonna slender up. I'm gonna try to get me some abs. I'm gonna eat right all the time. And it's not for the destination. So guess what? So now if a vacation comes or a family reunion comes or a pool party comes, you're ready all the time because you're in shape all the time and you remember how amazing it felt when people told you that. You remember how amazing you felt, every day knowing that you accomplished this thing. But somehow we all fall back in the rut of like normal life is eating the garbage because that's what everybody else eats, right? That's what everywhere you go, that's all the options. There's fast food everywhere. I'm tired. I don't have any time. But you got to make time. You got when you understand this, I'm over 400 days in a row in the gym. And it's not at this point. I got to tell you, it doesn't even matter to me that many days because I know that it's the end day is going to be caused. It's not. There's not going to be a reason. There's not going to be an excuse. It's going to be caused. That's the day that I miss going to the gym. And at one point, I'm gonna start going to the gym. Maybe I'm gonna go, maybe travel a little bit with my wife, and I'll find the gym. I'm gonna plan my vacation around making sure that I have time in the gym because I'm important on my vacation too. And I don't drink. I stopped that about 8 months ago, and I stopped just because I wanted to be healthy, and I started reading all the what it does to your brain, what it does to your organs. It's similar shit that and liver and all the kidneys and processed sugars. They're not a distant second when it comes to all the what it does to your body. But but once I cut out all that stuff, eating isn't the enjoyment. I mean, I still enjoy eating. I'll cut up some peppers. Let's make things spicy, and that's how I enjoy my food. But I don't eat like I said for like oh I'm sad or I'm this. I eat because my body needs nutrition. I'm eating because that's what is going to move me forward. My goal is to be in the best shape I ever will be, and not to and I'm believe me, I eat my fat, I eat all that stuff. Fast food doesn't exist to me anymore. I mean, literally, I won't eat a French fry from fast food. That's off the table, and you got to make those kind of commitments to yourself if you're going to stick to this. It was hard. I got to tell you, man, I was a big fast food fan. Jack in the Box, all the tacos. Come on. Whew, two tacos. I mean, they're not 99 cents anymore. Shit, what happened to the 99 cent menu? Is it the $5 menu now? Man, this world is crazy. While doing that, you know, I don't like to talk any politics because people choose sides, and I'm not on a side. I'm on America's side, and that sounds like a cop out, but when you step out of the matrix, and that's what I'm considering what's happened to me. When you step out of that matrix and you get to see and you start to look to help people instead of always judging people and instead of reacting because people are saying stuff about you instead of getting emotional about that stuff, you try to find out why. You listen to the words instead of reacting to them, because when you're outside the matrix you see kindness in everybody, you see a bad day in somebody, it's not your fault because it's something that was happening in their life. You don't have no clue that person could have just got a divorce. Something terrible could have happened in their life, and now you're just adding to it. And what does it matter? Somebody cut you off in traffic. I'm working on that with myself too. I was the shaking my hand kind of guy. I never did the honk the horn. But if you did something rude, I might drive up next to you and smile. But I never try to fight anybody or anything like that. But I got to tell you, that's how I was, and ever since I've been like focusing on anytime I start to overreact to things, or if I did overreact to something, catch it is immediately, and then go talk to the person and say, you know what, hey, I'm trying to work on this stuff, and now that I look back on this situation, I could have improved the way I did that. And I would like to add to this, and that's usually what I do. So what people understand is that my intentions were always going to be always kindness, all that stuff. But sometimes I don't know how to relay it. I don't know how to get it across. But so sometimes like I said, have to step away, collect my thoughts, and say, Matt, you overreacted to that. How could we improve that? And instead of just letting it go and letting that situation end that way, I like to go back and I like to have a conversation with people. I'm a pretty joyous guy, and people don't hate talking to me. At least maybe they do, because they know it's going to be a long conversation. Or here's the thing: I can read your face if you want to have a conversation. I can read your face if you have something to say. I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys have it too, but I also see the face of the person that does not want to talk to anybody. And with them, I usually just try to give a little bit of a smile or a compliment. Like if I see I like their shoes, I tell them I really like their shoes, or if I like their haircut, and I genuinely like it, I make sure, or their shirt, or something about them that I can find that I like. So maybe it maybe doesn't crack them. Maybe they stay pissed off all they want, but maybe later in the day they'll think about it. You know what I mean? Maybe once they get past that, and maybe they heard that stranger say something nice to them, and maybe they want to spread that out, or like I said, or made it turn a little bit of a frown into a smile, and that's my impact on the world. I mean, that's the impact I'm trying to give to the world. I'm not a perfect person. No, I have bad days too. I'm quiet sometimes. Sometimes people they prep me up. I think I just have one of those faces people want to talk to. Or they just want to tell me about my eyes. That's all anybody ever tells me about is my blue eyes. I can't see them. I can't see what you see. To me they just look like regular eyes. So when people stop and stare at me or ask me what color my eyes are, I mean it's my whole entire life. And I'm not saying that I hate it. I'm not saying that I hate it, but there's times when you're feeling not feeling good about yourself, and yes, I've had plenty of those times in my life. It's not now, but there's plenty of those times, and yeah, I didn't want to hear anything, and I'm sure I react. They say, I'm sure you hear it all the time, and my answer should be, I still love it, and I do, but at the times I would say yes, I do, and man, those are moments, but I don't regret the things it is because I have to learn. I have to look back on my life, and that's something I'm going through. Is this? I'm looking all the way back to my childhood. I'm going way back, and I'm thinking of like these childhood memories, those core memories that you like that hurt, or those things that happened when you're a kid. We all have those things, and even if they're not a big deal to somebody else, to us, they molded who we are as people. Now I'm looking back at that and I'm like, man, I was pretty sensitive. And in those times, I thought, we're little. We thought my parents know everything. My parents, of course they have all the answers. Of course they know everything. And then when they messed up, I'm like, what, and then you start to blame them. And instead you react to it like, you know, and you hold on to it for the rest of your life of, the things like that. And then I had kids. And then my kids are grown, and my kids are telling stories, and they do not remember them anything like I do. Not, I mean, I don't even realize that we're telling the same story sometimes, but that's how they feel, and that's their core memories. So in those moments, yeah, I value what they have to say because you have to, because that's their memory. And I was the same way as a kid. So, and I have to listen and go, maybe you're not perfect. Maybe in your mind, all those times where you thought you were being a good person or whatever, maybe you're still being selfish, Maybe you were you told yourself you're open-minded, so then, which made you more closed-minded because you think that everything you think is right because you're open-minded. That's not what open-minded is. What I've come to realize, like I back to the Republican Democrat thing. What I've come to realize is that there's some things I like about one side, there's some things I like about another side. One side I agreed with a little bit more this time, so that's the way I voted. And but the thing is I have the right to be in the middle. I have the right to think maybe one or two top, maybe there's some extreme things that I remember, and maybe they're on the other side of the fence. But I want to have the right to do that. And I don't want to hate the person that disagrees with me on other topics. Like that's the problem with this world is that we can't, we can't control our emotions about nonsense. Instead of realizing that person grew up in a completely different environment, a different parents, different situation, everything, every day of their life has been different than mine. But yet I'm here to judge them for how they believe, how they were molded, all their core memories, all the things that happened to them when they were kids, to form this whole person. And now we're trying to destroy these people. No, how we have to see the world now is we have to see others with compassion, regardless if they're angry or mad or upset. You have to stop seeing it as an attack on you, because you got to. That's what our problem is. We all think me, me, me. How does this affect me? How do I? What me, me, me? We think we're no. I'm about other people, but no. When something happens, you're like, hey, how does this affect me? Instead of bouncing that shit. If they're bringing hate at you, you're not. You're not in the mood to be in hate. Don't do it. Don't fall into it. A visceral reaction only lasts for about 90 seconds. That's something you can't control. There's something inside of you. But if you work on it, you get less of it and you have more control. But after that, in any situation, after 90 seconds, that's all up to your brain. If you're still feeling pain, if you're still feeling hurt and you're feeling all these things, that's all you. That's your thoughts creating that. And you have control over how you think of things. You can experience sadness without becoming a victim of sadness. You know what I mean? Because whoever had passed away, I guarantee that person wouldn't want you to grieve for the rest of your life and give up your happiness and give up the rest of your life because of them. How do you think that would make them feel? That's why, if I understand, say I just lost my uncle. I lost my uncle. And that guy right there. Sorry, got a little choked up there, but it was like the person I wanted to be. You understand what I'm saying? Like, he was my uncle. He was older. He was the cool uncle. Cool uncle. I haven't cried about it yet. So I just got to think about it for a second. But he was a special dude. He was a special dude. He was very likable. Everybody liked him. He was just, you know what I mean? Like, he was the first person I ever like said, I want to be that when I grow up. You know what I mean? Like, to have that kind of personality. And he taught me how to lift. He taught me all fitness when I was 14 years old. He taught me form. If you ever watch me in the gym, my form is perfect because that man taught me, And he taught me about diets and he taught me about different workouts. He taught me about like how muscle works, how to work the angles, how to do all that. He taught me all that stuff. And then, and then he started to get older and he stopped caring about his fitness and he stopped caring about that. And in my family, we have, a lot of obesity, and there's a lot of type 2 diabetes, and that's the kind you give yourself. That's the kind you eat yourself into. So understand that. So, and if you guys follow me, I'm going to do a whole thing on fasting that's really going to help type 2 diabetes. And this is going to be a big point of mine now, because that's what took my uncle. He let himself go. He lost the battle with food. He lost toes. He would still eat that shit. He was, somebody's knocking off my digits. I think I'm gonna go ahead and stop eating the cheese balls. But that's what the food is, that kind of addiction. And it's sad. It's sad because I know, I've now that I've broken it, it's I'll tell you what, your body feels so much better. Your body definitely feels better. But it's just it was, I remember, man, I used to eat bags of candy. And so, sometimes in your mind, and it's crazy when I'm lifting this thing, I'm going, like every day, working out all the time. Like I said, man, I'm progressing at work. We're taking care of everything. We're making sure we're going a little slow at it, but we're figuring some stuff out right now. But the problem with that is I got to make sure I keep moving forward because we get complacent in situations, especially when we think we're taking it slow. Sometimes we take it too slow. So as long as you're progressing, as long as you're making an advancement in the right direction, I jump around a lot in topics. Hmm. I want to get back to what I was talking about, and I have nope. I think I've remembered. So wow, I've talked about so many different things. Oh, I was talking about my uncle, and so yeah, that man, like he had back in my day. You have to understand, Sylvester Stallone was the coolest motherfucker around. That was Rocky. You know what I mean? That was Rocky. And my uncle looked exactly like him. Beard, everything. Drove a Firebird, like the one from like Smokey and the Bandit Firebird. Like he's the coolest dude. He'd take me and my cousin. And I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan to this day because of that man. He is the hugest. He named his kids Dallas. He named his kid Dallas, and then his kid named his kid Dallas. That's how big a Cowboys fans, and because of that man. Because you got to being a Cowboy fan is a hard trek, especially my kids are Cowboy fans too, and they haven't got to experience the Super Bowls. They get to experience the stories about the Super Bowls, and I get to experience the those expectations everybody has for a team. And Jerry knows how to keep that stuff alive. He knows how to cause that drama. Took a little too far with Michael Parsons, but it's he is the biggest Cowboy fan. And every year I would him like, hey man, I don't think so. And he'd be like, well, here's Jerry's plan. Like he calls the front office and he has a direct line. He's like, all right, so what we're doing is rebuilding for 2 years. We're gonna pick up some guys in the draft. We're gonna get some offensive linemen. And it's funny whenever I'd have a conversation with him, or I knew I was going to have a conversation with him. I would read everything Dallas Cowboys because I mean I'm a fan, and like I said, my kids are fans and all that stuff. My poor son. Well, so everybody probably turned this off whenever I said I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, right? But I'm going back to my uncle is just that he just had so much life in him, and I saw it slowly drain away with the food thing. As he's started his kid. Matter of fact, right before he died, he had his first dialysis scheduled up for Tuesday because his kidneys were failing. His heart was in terrible. I mean, he breathed like he had pneumonia, and yet still eating Jack in the Box and doing that stuff. But I guess at the end, right there, that's on him. And here's what you guys got to understand: he knows. He taught me. He knows how not to do that. He knows. He taught me fitness. you know, but hey, that's what the addiction food is, and that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm even participating in this. Is not necessarily because of my uncle, but my uncle did spur me. When I watched him slowly die, eating junk food, and not and here's the thing: is I understand like you can't blame him. It's how much of America is addicted to that stuff. I was one of those people at one point. And kids don't care anyways. Kids don't read the labels. Kids don't read the warning signs. It's up to us. It's up to us parents, but then we seem like what? We don't have time, right? Or we seem overbearing, or we have all this parent. I want to be like everybody else, mom. I want to be like everybody else. So that's why we got to teach our kids that they don't need to be like everybody else. They need to be the best version of themselves, whatever that is. At whatever that is. That's what we need to teach our kids. But we don't have time, right? We don't have time for parenting anymore because we all have to work because there's bills to pay, right? We all live above our means, and the rich keep getting richer, and us down here at upper bottom is what I would call it. I maybe low middle. I don't know. But I think that's pretty high up there, and I don't make that much, but it's a life where I can make it most of the time. You get a little behind, you find a way to catch up. We all, at whatever level, we all kind of live that way anyways. You try to save, you tell yourself, I can't do it. It's Christmas. It's this. You know what I mean? So it's just, it gets hard. It gets hard. So back to my uncle again. Sorry. Sorry. I just want to say that, I love that man. Like I said, he was like my first kind of hero outside my dad, and somebody I looked up to. And to watch something like that, so I got to make a difference. I got to make a difference somehow. I don't know. People say I'm motivating. Well, it's up to you to decide. Ooh, ah, I just talked for so long, but I needed to get that off my chest, and I really appreciate you guys listening. I hope you guys like my stuff, and if TikTok is where I post most of my videos. I don't know. I'm not supposed to be advertising for them. Maybe they're going to be here, maybe they're not. But if you're interested, I have some longer stuff on YouTube. But if you're interested, I got a lot of stuff on TikTok, and I have a lot of inclusion. I got love every single person that follows the page, and I appreciate everybody, and I appreciate everybody that participates. If I haven't got back to you, and I seem to try to get to every single person, I apologize because I like to talk to you guys. I love when you guys ask me for advice. And understand, I double check everything that I do. I make sure that any information I give to you is, and then I just give you my own personal experience. Since I'm going through it with you, I'm still, you know, there's no perfect time where like it's over. I mean, I'm never gonna touch that. I mean, that's my thinking. That's my mindset. But who knows what situation? What can I tell myself is that I can just try to do it every day instead of thinking and stressing about if I'm going to fail in the future. I'm just going to win today. I'm just going to do the best I can today. And since I've started to think that way, I don't stress. Obviously, you have to think about, if you're at work, you got to think about plans and stuff like that. But once you establish what you need to be, now let's follow the steps. If you do all the practice right, the game's easy. So every step, if you do every step correctly and you do it proper, because there's times where you're just mulling over because you got to get to the end, right? Take that step. You'll learn more along the way, just like it is with the fitness. You'll learn more along the way, but you'll keep moving up, and you'll get to that end. But when it's funny when you get to that end, you don't want to stop. It's not an end, and you've started to enjoy the journey so long that you're like, let's keep going, and that's the point. The point of this is the journey is the goal. Get on the journey, and I'm talking about the journey that doesn't end with I got to go to the beach or I got to go to to a party. I got to I'm losing weight because I'm going to a reunion. It can't end there. You got to keep going because you're important every day, and you'll see how much it changes you when you start to show yourself. Because you're like, "Oh, of course I know. I know." You don't know. You don't know because it's amazing. It's amazing. So that's I talked your ear off today. So hopefully you guys follow me, like I said, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.